The next bill I'd like to put before the committee is 5329 by Representative Morgan, which transfers the state health benefits exchange to the federal government on or before December 31st, 2014. Excuse me, 2015, I apologize. Representative Morgan.
Thank you. This year, or when Director Ferguson came before us last year, we tried to get at what the cost of running our state exchange was, and she was never quite able to pin it down, but it appeared to be 24 to 25 million. I am assuming that Governor Raimondo is sharpening the her pencil and getting at those costs, because that's really quite high. But even if she were to take 40% off, it's still $15 million. So I'm kind of going with a $15 million price tag for the HealthSource Rhode Island. It's probably what it will come up to. There's only so much you can cut out, and to go from 25 million to 15 is still a lot of cutting. That being said, currently there are only 25,000 people who are paying for their insurance on HealthSource Rhode Island. If you do the math, 25,000 into 15 million, you come up with $600 per policy as the overhead expense. This is not the expense of the care. This is just the overhead, the cost of salaries, lights, software. I actually took marketing out by cutting that $10 million. So it's $600 per person for overhead. $600 for every person who gets their insurance through the healthcare exchange. If, on the other hand, they go to the federal exchange, it is 3%. The average premium for a family is about $4,000, so it would be $120 in overhead for them to go to the federal exchange. It's a big difference. $480 in savings. And the savings are even bigger because they won't come from our state's taxpayers. We really can't afford the $15 million. We have a very large deficit this year, and we still want to do things. We want to have full-day kindergarten, right? We want to eliminate income tax on Social Security. We really can't afford to spend $15 million on something that is nice to have, but is not essential. And therefore, this bill, this legislation, is terminating HealthSource Rhode Island and transferring it to the federal government. Right now, each of us who pays for our own insurance, not through HealthSource Rhode Island, we pay the overhead costs for our policies, right, in our own premiums. That's most of Rhode Island, because only 25,000 people are actually getting their insurance through the healthcare exchange. So you are asking for taxpayers who are already paying the overhead costs of their own insurance to pay for the overhead costs of other folks' insurance. It's just not fair, right? I'm already paying mine. Let them pay theirs. But to have them pay $600 is not fair either. It's too much when all they'd have to do in the federal exchange is to pay $120 on average. I know a lot of people are concerned about the lawsuit that's going through the Supreme Court right now, the King Burwell suit, which says that the subsidies would not be available unless you go through a state exchange. In addressing that, I can tell you that the administration, the Obama administration, is very confident that they're going to prevail. They have 4 justices already. They only need 1 more to win, in which case the federal health care exchange would continue in its present form. On the other hand, if King prevails and the subsidies are only available to the states, I know from reading and hearing that the Republicans in Congress are already working on a fix so that people can continue to get health insurance. We all want people to have insurance. We want it to be affordable for them. So either way, we would continue to have the subsidies or the affordability for the people who are currently in the HealthSource Rhode Island. If in the Supreme Court, King should prevail, and only the subsidies come to the state exchanges, which means the federal exchange basically would probably not continue, it would be a disincentive for companies to come and locate in Rhode Island, because then we would have the employer tax on health insurance in our state, and the other 34 states that are currently in the federal exchange would not. These are all things we have to think about, because we need companies to come here. We want them to come here. Jobs are leaving Rhode Island every day, and we can't afford any more disincentives for them to leave. So for all those reasons, I hope you will support this legislation. It's pretty common sense. It's cheaper. It will help our state just as much.
Thank you, Representative. Questions of Representative Morgan. Representative Hull.
Maybe you can answer this, Mr. Chairman, or Ms. Morgan. We've already spent the money, that's correct. Are there any obligations that we would have to pay it back, or some way forfeit what we've done? I don't know the answer to that. Maybe you can answer.
Did you want to answer?
I don't have an answer to that.
Okay. The contract that we had with the federal government was to produce the HealthSource exchange. We have done that, so we have given them their deliverable. So no, there would be no clawbacks, no reason to pay them back.
Thank you.
Representative G. Russo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Morgan. As a legislator, I often think that this body, really all the money that's spent in the state, really should run through this body right here. So to see that a governor can take executive action, although it looks like at the time it's innocent because there's no money, but down the road there is. So it could be 2 years, 3 years down the road. This becomes a real expense. How do you think that could happen? I mean, and is there something that we should do to stop that from happening in the future? Because they are setting the hook.
Yeah, the original executive order that established the healthcare exchange, our state healthcare exchange, said that no state money would be used to support it. So far, that's been true, but it stops this year. So the executive order won't be, I don't know, it's valid, I guess, but it no longer. It would be violating what it even says, right? It says in the original executive order, no state money. We will start using state money this year. So that executive order should cease to be operative, because now they're looking for money from the taxpayers of our state.
Well, if the executive order would obviously be extinguished with the fact that there's a new governor there, and if Governor Raimondo chooses to place money or to put something into the budget, obviously that would become
That's
law.
right. At this point, before it has been operating under an executive order, by continuing with it, we would now be accepting it as a legislative. We'd be passing a budget with it in it.
That's correct.
That's right.
Representative Ruggiero.
Thank you, Chairman. So giving this HealthSource Rhode Island back to the federal government, it doesn't come at zero. What is the cost to the state to return it back to the federal government?
Nothing.
I don't know.
I mean, do you think they're going to penalize us? Is that what you're asking?
Well, I just know when I spoke with Ana Rider Wallik, the new director of HealthSource Rhode Island, because I asked that question. The number was somewhere around $10 million for us to return it back to the federal government. We lose control, obviously, because we no longer have the healthcare exchange in our own state after we've created the infrastructure and everything else. And then, so I think we need to drill down. I agree with you that the original cost to set it up seemed excessive at $25 million, but $12 million of that money was in marketing. There is no more marketing to be done. Now it's just maintaining what's currently in place. And I think it's more than 20,000 people utilizing the exchange. There's also
25.
I think it might be, I mean, I don't
Yeah, we
quote me.
checked today, it's 25.
And how many businesses?
There's 2,400 people from businesses.
So 25,000 individuals and 2,400 business employees?
Is it inclusive, the 25,000? I mean, on the website, it says 25,000 people are actually paying for their health insurance through HealthSource Rhode Island. And I believe of those 2,400 are from companies using the SHOP platform.
I appreciate, wanting to drill down and certainly be more economical, but I think we just need to look at what would the cost be to deliver it back to the federal government. And then what will the feds do? They will probably charge, like they are in other states, 1.52% on all the insurers to pay to sustain it.
Well, you know what? I actually put in 3% when I came up with $120 per person. It's $600 per policy now. It would go down to 3% or $120. So it's a real savings. You mentioned that, all right, it might cost us $10 million, $12 million to give it back to the federal government. That's a one-time. Whereas if we keep our state exchange, we'll be paying $15 million every year. So it's not just this year. I mean, we're not going to pay the federal government 10 or 12 million every year. We're just going to give it back to them. And control is overrated.
Well, I appreciate it. I think I would just rather hear more from HealthSource Rhode Island to see how they're drilling down to the budget. Because I agree with you. It's probably an exchange that can be managed around $13 million, certainly not 25 or 26.
But remember, at $15 million, with the number of people we have now, it's still $600 per policy. That's a lot of money.
Thank you.
Well, certainly the budget, if the governor does propose to put something into the budget, it all comes through the budgetary process. We would have hearings on it. We'll find out all of the information of what happens if we were to turn it back to the federal government. We will find out all of the costs that would be. We will certainly have extensive hearings on any proposal if the governor were to put that in the budget. Representative Barrows, you had a question?
Yeah, I guess it was partially answered. But I guess I wanted to know if we can actually get HealthSource RI to come in and actually give us some information regarding that.
I assure you that will happen. Okay.
Thank you.
And let me just respond to, we have so many priorities in our state, right? So many things that we really want to spend money on, and it doesn't make sense for us to spend money on something that we don't really need to, because there is a perfectly good alternative. It's like I said, full-day kindergarten, right? Something that we all want. We want to support our libraries. We want to get rid of the income tax on Social Security. All these things are priorities. So why would we spend money on something that we don't have to spend it on? Because there's a perfectly good alternative. Thank you.
Again, all of that, whether or not it's the federal is a perfectly good alternative or not, was something that this committee would have to would have hearings on and would make that particular decision. So thank you, Representative. But so let's see. We have some people that have signed up to testify, but we also have some other information that has been sent to us. The Secretary of Health and Human Services, Elizabeth Roberts, has submitted a letter, as has Ana Rider Wallik, which is in your packet. Sean Donahue from Rhode Island Blue Cross has also submitted a letter. Rhode Island Kids Count has submitted a letter also, and they won't be testifying. Let's see, I'd like to go to Linda Katz. Is it Peter? Dr. Peter Kazman. I don't know if he's here. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce his last name. and Laureen Nadel-Gresh, and David Faston. But the letters are also I've scanned in, but if you need hard copies, we'll certainly. They should be in a file folder in the folder inside the way they. Okay, could you explain before we go into? Chris will explain to you. Okay. Did you find them? If you need hard copies, we'll certainly get everybody hard copies of it. I'm trying to save paper, so I'm sorry about that, but. Ms. Katz, would you like to begin? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Linda Katz. I'm the Policy Director at the Economic Progress Institute. And I'll just say that we support the testimony that was submitted in writing by Kids Count. I just have a couple of points to make. Number one is the first in terms of the numbers of 26,000 Rhode Islanders and $60 million. And that's the number of Rhode Islanders that have enrolled through HealthSource RI and are accessing the federal tax credits to help them buy affordable insurance. Certainly we don't know what the King versus Burwell decision will result in, but it seems a big risk to take to think that if we give away HealthSource RI back to the feds and don't have a state exchange that so many Rhode Islanders could risk losing the tax credits that they're currently receiving to help them enroll in coverage. Second point is, as Rep. Morgan has indicated, it's not free to give the exchange to the feds. There is an assessment that's charged of 3.5%. That's embedded in the premiums that people would have to pay, so there is a cost to folks to enroll through the exchange. There's also a cost to the carriers who have invested their funds to be able to connect to HealthSource RI. That's Blue Cross Blue Shield, United, and Neighborhood Health Plan. If we no longer have an exchange in Rhode Island and they need to sell on the federal exchange, that is further costs for them to build that connection with the federal exchange. And it's also not clear whether all of those carriers would choose to sell on the federal exchange, which means that there would be a disruption in care and coverage for many Rhode Islanders. The fourth point is about the SHOP, the small employer program, and the employee choice that Rhode Island has set up through HealthSource RI, which would not be available if we were to have only a federal exchange. And I do know that the numbers of there are 454 employers who have purchased through the SHOP, which provided coverage to 3,282 employees and their dependents. And just if folks don't understand what employee choice is, this gives some consistency to small employers, so it's good for businesses. The employers can decide what plan they want to fund through the exchange and offer their employees, and then employees can buy up or down. So healthy or young employees can decide that they're not going to enroll in the plan that their employer chose, but enroll in a less expensive plan, and that costs them less money. And some people can buy up if maybe the employee has family members with disabilities and they want a plan that's a little bit less costly in terms of more costly in terms of monthly premiums, but less out-of-pocket costs. So it gives that sort of choice, and it gives some consistency to employers, so it's good business. The last point I wanted to make is that Rhode Island, in building the exchange here, made the decision to have sort of one-stop shopping for consumers. So if you've got a family, for example, with income of $40,000 a year, not typical salary for somebody in Rhode Island, so for a family of 4, the kids in those families are eligible for our Right Care program. The parents buy coverage through HealthSource RI. They have one-stop shopping now. They go onto the website, they put in their income, information is verified, and the system tells them whether or not their kids are in Right Care, and the parents can buy their coverage through the exchange. If we were to no longer have the exchange in Rhode Island and instead give it to the feds, what would then happen is that family submits an application to the federal exchange. Federal exchange determines that the kids are eligible for Right Care, sends part of that application back to the state to process the kids' eligibility for Right Care, and there's this bifurcation in terms of processing. We all talk a lot about streamlining government services for residents. we have now a very streamlined service for our consumers, and we should keep that in Rhode Island for that reason as well as for the several other reasons that I've mentioned and that have been mentioned in the Kids Count written testimony. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Welcome to the committee.
Oh, yeah, just hit it.
Oh, hi, sorry about that. My name is Lauren Nidell-Gresh. I live in actually District 40 with Representative Mike Chippendale's district. I'm the Democratic State Committee woman of the district. I am absolutely in opposition to House Bill 5329. As a user of HealthSource Rhode Island, I can tell you that it really is a godsend almost. I know my provider is covered under HealthSource Rhode Island, where I know if he was under a federal exchange, he would not be. He's a small, single doctor that would not meet the all the qualifications to be a federal HealthSource doctor. He would be out. A lot of smaller doctors, older doctors, have the ability to stay on the Rhode Island exchange because we can create our own rules and regulations. We are following what is best for the people of Rhode Island, the doctors of Rhode Island, and the companies of Rhode Island because it's an in-house exchange. When we go federal, we lose that control. All the regulations that are in federal are pushed upon the people and the doctors in state. You will lose a lot of coverage. A lot of people will have to find alternative doctors and possibly facilities. This could upset their treatments that they've been getting and could be a major financial burden on those families should they want to keep those doctors. The number I came up with from a website that I checked out today was actually closer to 29,000 people that are using HealthSource Rhode Island. I came up with 28,787 to be exact. That's actually 78% of the projected people that should be on it are on it. That tells you that actually HealthSource Rhode Island is a great success. People pay taxes for all sorts of things that they may not take advantage of, things that they may not like to, like 38 studios. The money that we pay for HealthSource Rhode Island is going towards the people of Rhode Island directly. This offsets their costs, makes them more secure, and makes them actually, more comfortable and more, feel better about where they live. That's something that's not necessarily tangible, but something that should be taken under consideration. And I've been on HealthSource Rhode Island 2 different occasions. Once because my employer was charging way too much on their actual plan. Something like they're charging $375 every 2 weeks for a plan, $750 a month for 3 people to be covered under a company's plan. Could not afford that. Went to HealthSource Rhode Island, found a great plan. My family uses practically no health care. I'm not one of those people that is on health care because I have 20 appointments every month. I've got, between the 3 of us, we have about 15 appointments maybe per year. I was able to get covered for a very a great amount, and I'm able to move within jobs because that coverage is there for me. Under federal, we may not have that ability to move around and be successful at a different position. The other reason that I think we should absolutely keep HealthSource Rhode Island is because it is just in its infancy. It's only 2 years old or less. It takes a while. Do we need to cut out some of that administration redundancy? Absolutely. Way too much paperwork, way too much paper back and forth. Things need to be automated, more online. The representatives need to be trained better. All the information needs to be consistent between what's being put on the website and what's being told. That takes a little bit more time. That takes, keeping the system open, available, and working the system. So instead of closing the system, instead of ending it, we should embrace it and say, hey, we can be a role model for other states. We're a small state. We have more manageable information. We have a website that's functional, may not be perfect, but at least it's in working order. And instead of giving up on it, we should say, hey, we're doing what's best for our citizens. Hey, it may be less than 30,000, but that's 30,000 people taking advantage of a specific health system or a specific system that the state is paying for. How many other operations are there that there's 30,000 people that take advantage of a particular state-provided service? So you have to look at the bigger picture, and the bigger picture is to keep it the way it is, work on it, make it better, but don't give up on it. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Good evening, sir. Welcome.
Can you hear me? Hi, I'm Dave Fasterson. I'm from Smithfield, Rhode Island. I'm with the Rhode Island Progressive Democrats of America. I'm just coming to just want to keep it short and simple, but my wife and I were on Medicaid last year, and we found it helped us. I mean, it kept us in our home. We couldn't have, if we had to pay for health insurance, possibly could have lost our home, and that would be further cost to the economy. By keeping people with health insurance, it can come to that point. The jobs, as you know, the state has a real problem, and a lot of jobs are part-time per diem. Employers don't want to pay insurance, so this exchange personally has helped my wife and I stay stable last year. So going to the federal, I just wanted to say that the Rhode Island exchange is working. It's not a failure. I've been through it, and we, like as Progressive Democrats, we oppose going to the federal exchange. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions of the members of the panel? Representative Gio Russo?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to clarify, I don't think it's ever been mentioned that Rhode Island HealthSource RI is a failure. I think what Representative Morgan said, it could be done with a lot less money if you go to a federal exchange. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Any other questions of the members of the panel? Thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate it. Okay. Is there any... We did receive some other testimony. Hopefully everybody's gotten the written testimony now. Peter Marino from Neighborhood Health Plan has submitted testimony in opposition. It was Dr. Peter Kazmar from the Rhode Island Medical Society that has submitted written testimony in opposition. That's all that I have signed up. Is anyone else out there that wants to testify on this particular piece of legislation? Hearing none, that will conclude the hearing on 5329.